Hi friends, a lot of you have asked for feedback for your particular photo post contest, and that is what this channel is flipping about. It's about bouncing back. It's about striving to learn, to progress. And I highly respect that and your dedication to this beautiful craft that we all love. Now, as much as I would love to go through every single photo, it would end up being a 3-hour long video. So instead, I want to drop in really quick and give you 5 very helpful tips, I hope, that address, an overall trend in a lot of the entries. Starting with number 1. Number 1, you all know Chef Gordon Ramsay. If not, well, you should. He's one of my biggest idols. 100%, 100,000%. Whether it's Hell's Kitchen or Kitchen Nightmares or his masterclass, he always talks about how you are what you put on your plate. And the same exact rule goes for photography. Now, you are what you put in frame. Now, I'm not talking about individual backdrops because not everyone has the gear or the setup to fix the background, and that's okay. What I'm talking about is what you are including in the photo. There were a good amount of photos that had random objects in the frame of the photo along with the board game that you were shooting, like coffee mugs or pencils or standee holders without the standee, a random cube. Now, I completely overlooked those things and only analyzed your composition because, it's our first one, come on. But still, think about intention. The goal for everyone may not be, to sell your photos to clients, but at least the intention to think that way and to shoot that way is there. When you do that, you shoot at your best. Why? Because people are counting on you. And that stress is there. It becomes much more real. Number 2, much more photography technique based. When you commit to a shape, and I'm talking about committing to a shape with like cards, tokens, any component. When you make that, set of cards into like an X or an arch, you want to make sure that you commit all the way. If you make a half circle with components, do it as perfectly as you can, because if not, it loses that effect. For instance, if I were to put these houses, maybe, some on top of the tile, some on the bottom, some in the center, it's gonna look very sloppy. But because they're all tack sharp in one line with even spacing, it creates a more pleasing composition. So when you commit to a shape, commit to it wholeheartedly. Oh my God, if board game photography could be distilled down to one secret, it would probably be that. Well, secret's out. Number 3, spacing. Try your best to keep meeples, cards, and your components overall evenly spaced. This becomes increasingly difficult with the more components that you introduce. It's much harder to space like 10 meeples versus, 3 evenly. But remember, composition is a layering exercise. You are adding detail after detail to construct an overall pleasing photo. If one meeple is out of line on the left and there's another set with a bigger gap than the second setup on top, details like that will stick out like a sore thumb. Let's say you have one meeple out of a group of meeples out of line here in the left frame. And then you have the same exact symmetrical frame here on the right side. And there's no meeple out of line. Details like that are going to stick out like a sore thumb. So you want to try to avoid that. Now that leads us to number 4. If you're going for symmetry, which most of us probably will, make sure your symmetry matches. If I have a pile of 4 cubes here on the left, and then I have, like the main board, the player board, meeples in the center, and then that second pile of the 4 cubes here on the right, it has to match. If they don't match, it's gonna look really off. So whatever is done on the left side in terms of spacing, in terms of shape, in terms of distance, has to match on the right side. Or at least you wanna try your best to do so. And the final quick tip I have for you today in terms of board game composition, 90% of the photos, honestly, were immaculate. They were beautifully done, they were beautifully organized. You can tell there was so much time and effort spent in constructing your photo. But ultimately, there has to be some way to narrow it down. And that always comes down to something that I struggle with every single day. And that is, how do you make your board game composition unique? What is my showstopper? What's going to make people stop scrolling? Stop and click on this thumbnail to learn more about this game. You want to try to make people ask, oh, how did I take that picture? Or have people think about incorporating that technique that you did in your photo, in their own photos. But you want to ask yourself that, because that is how you distinguish your photos. I'm glad that you're all gung-ho about feedback. That is awesome. Not many people are open to feedback, but that's what separates, a stale photo versus a showstopper. It's figuring out what you can do better the next time around. And speaking of, it is time for me to get on with my next shoot and to once again to stop procrastinating. So comment down below which tip you found most helpful. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.